Welcome to A.U.M. Ask Us Marketing. I'm your host, Callie Fedosinko of Callie Collective, a digital marketing agency designed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience through data-driven content, websites, and advertising. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. The FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. They also have an amazing national conference coming up in September where you can meet yours truly. This episode, we're welcoming Justin Peters back, who's going to give us the lowdown on podcast gear and what you really need to get started. So, Justin, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Callie, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good for a Monday.
Yeah, I'm not muted this time, which is great. So we're already off to a better start than our first run.
Exactly. So, speaking of last time, Justin, we talked about the power of podcasting, why it's important for an advisor, and what to expect when you start one. And let me bring that link up. So, this was our episode 6 of 2024. And if you are a listener on the podcast that we now have, you can go back and listen to episode number 6. If you're watching live, you can scan the QR code if you want to refresh your memory. But Justin, could you tell our audience a little bit about your podcasting background just to remind us all?
Sure. I'll keep it short and sweet since we did do an episode before this
Yeah.
already. And, people are here to learn from me, not probably learn my story, although it can be fun and exciting to share. But I've been a hobbyist and indie podcaster for going on almost 4.5 years at this point in time. I truly was just podcasting as a hobby for the first 2 years until I started to get really serious about it. And then my brother joined the team, and quickly after that, we started a podcast production company, and now we support over a dozen entrepreneurs and creators with their podcast editing and podcast management needs.
I love it. Soon you'll be telling us your rags to riches story. So last time we talked, you suggested starting with audio before introducing video. So today I just want to focus on the audio equipment, which brings me to my first question for you. How important is audio quality to a podcast?
I still stand by that audio versus video. I think it can be a huge hurdle for people whenever they're starting their podcast journey to also be thinking about the video component. And we also talked about, just being ready to talk, but maybe not ready to present from a video format. So I do think it is a good idea if you're trying to start simple and just get going to start with audio only. But with that, I do think audio quality over the last few years has become more and more important. And that's probably coincided with the competitiveness of this medium. You used to just be able to slap up any kind of audio into a podcast and people were going to listen because there wasn't 2 million podcasts that were out there. But nowadays, there's a lot of podcasts that are out there. They're all creating great quality content. And I do think there can be some friction for first-time listeners if they listen to an episode and it sounds like you're
in
a metal container over a shoddy Wi-Fi and, speaking into your computer audio. So I think it is becoming more and more important to eliminate some of that friction from an audio quality standpoint. But the good news is it's becoming easier and easier to do that by just buying a professional quality mic and doing some of the things right on the front end to prevent a lot of the post-production work that you need to do on the back end.
Yeah. So what mic or multiple mics do you suggest?
I'm going to keep things like super straightforward and easy whenever it comes to this, because I do see a lot of people get paralyzed whenever it comes to choices around hardware. And I think that is one of the decisions that gets way too much attention from first-time podcasters. So I like to keep it super easy and simple. I love the Samsung Q2U. It's super affordable as well. It's $70. It's also very universal in the sense that it's both USB and XLR. And whenever I say that, USB is just, you can plug something straight into your laptop, or if you're a Mac Pro user, you might have to get a converter. But it's pretty simple and easy. An XLR cable is just to hook up to an audio interface. So if you have what they call as an audio interface as a in between you and your recording
Mm,
device, like your laptop, then it can also plug in as XLR. So I love that microphone. I think everybody should probably start with that. And honestly, maybe even end with that. If you want to
mm,
go one level up eventually, or if like money is not an issue, I am in the Shure SM7B right
mm.
now. It's about 300 to 350 depending on the time of the year.
Okay.
But like I said, with the right pre and post production work, you'll get the same audio quality or same audio
Mm,
sound from both of these microphones.
yeah. And if you are watching, I put the QR code up for the mic that Justin is recommending. How much does the Samsung run?
Yeah, the Samsung's $70.
Okay.
The link that you just set there is the Amazon bundle package too. It comes with a mic stand and what they
Mm,
call a windscreen. The windscreen is just that little
mm,
thing you put on top of your microphone that helps soften the P's or the S's or things like that. And the mic stand's great too because it gives you just a little bit of added flexibility to position the mic right in the right way.
right. Which I think now that I know what it's called, thank you, Justin. I think I have a windscreen on mine. Is that what
Yep.
this is?
Yeah.
All right. There you go for the
So
audience.
you can get clip-on windscreens that kind of sit right in front of it, or you can get a windscreen that essentially just goes straight over the top of the microphone too, and
Mm,
it's like already has the kind of structure to just sit on your microphone.
okay. You mentioned an audio interface,
Mhm.
the in between thing. What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, audio interface. Uh, I would say you probably got to need an audio interface if you're recording on multiple mics in the
Mhm.
same location. So,
Okay.
Callie, if you and I were both recording this in a studio together, then we would want to hook up our microphones into an audio interface
Mm,
so that it can process it the same way and that I can get one file, one combined file, or the
mm,
ISO files kind of all in one platform. So it's great. Plus it's mobile. Like, yeah, actually I wouldn't actually need my computer to record something. And some of the audio interfaces have some like cool features where you can press a button and it makes a sound effect at a certain
mm,
time,
mhm,
or
mhm.
you can auto mute yourself or change or adjust your gain, which is essentially how much volume is being picked up from your microphone. So there's some few added elements to it, but I would say 80 to 90% of new podcasters are probably going to use USB compatible mics, especially if they're recording remote
Right.
interviews.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm part of Speaker Lab, and they showed us what it sounds like when you have a directional mic, which is what I have. At least you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I have. Anyways, they showed us what it's like when you have a directional mic below your mouth and above your mouth. And that actually changed the way that I set my studio up. So if you're watching, I used to have my microphone above me pointing down, and now I have it below because my voice goes like this down into the mic. Justin, are there any tips like that for the mic that you suggested for the Samsung?
Yeah, the Samsung is the same way. The direction that you would speak into it would be just over the very top of the microphone.
Mm,
But my broader suggestion for everyone,
mhm,
regardless if you got the Q2U or whatever mic you have, it either comes with a user guide, or if you lost that user guide, you threw away the box or whatever, Google Shure SM7B user guide.
mm,
Then you're going to find they're going to probably have an online link. You're going to click on that online link, and then they will either show you a visual representation of how you should
mm,
actually speak into the mic, or it will at minimum give you the pattern of the microphone, because some microphones you speak into the top of it, some
yeah.
you speak into the front of it. So you just want to make sure you're speaking into it right. One of a really popular microphone out there is called the Blue Yeti, and
Oh, yes, I've heard of that one.
I've seen multiple people speaking into the Blue Yeti the wrong way. Many people
Mm,
speak into it like a traditional handheld microphone, where you're speaking into the top of the microphone like this.
yeah,
The pattern that it records on is actually the front face of the microphone. So you can probably even hear in your ears right now the change whenever I'm
yeah,
changing the direction of this microphone. So you want to be speaking into it like this versus like this, because essentially the audio's got to sound way better because you're actually speaking into it the right way.
Right.
So it's your easiest change or fix is to
Yeah.
get better quality microphone or quality from your microphone is to actually learn exactly how to speak into it.
Mm, so true. So good to know for everyone, you know?
Yeah, just user
Uh,
guide, manual, just go Google a couple of those words. You should find the online version of your
yeah.
microphone.
Okay. They had also showed us in this same session that I was in the difference that fabric and soft surroundings make with minimizing background noise. Um, Ironically, I do have blackout curtains next to me because I'm next to a window, which I assume helps. But what do you suggest for people who want to dampen the background noise?
Yeah, so if my number one suggestion to get better audio quality is to buy a professional mic, the number two is to learn how to speak into that mic. Number three is to treat your room.
Mm,
And your room or your environment, this can be multiple different ways that you can accomplish this.
mhm.
If you know it's going to be where you're recording more times than not, then I would go ahead and make a couple of investments. If you have a lot of hardness to your room, maybe a lot of big windows, a lot of glass, tall ceilings, you're going to get a lot of echo and you're going to hear
Mm.
that in your microphone.
Mhm.
Better quality microphones, dynamic microphones, they'll pick up less of that echo because they're only going to be picking up exactly what is in front of it. But
Yeah.
condenser mics like that Blue Yeti will pick up every sound in the whole room, and you will hear and feel that echo whenever you're listening to it in your ears.
Yeah.
So yes, you definitely want to bring in a lot of fabric or soft materials. So like three of my favorites to do right away
Mhm.
when somebody is like, "Yep, this is where I'm going to record 90% of my podcast." I say, "Okay, go buy a big rug,
Mm.
go buy some curtains for your windows, and go put in a love seat or chair or something into your
Mm.
room."
Mhm.
Those three big pieces of material will immediately soften your room, along with
Yeah.
all the other things you start adding to your room. If you need a short term fix because you're just not in the space where you can buy some things for your room yet, or maybe you're recording in a hotel room because you're
Mm.
traveling or something,
Mhm. Mhm.
go find the four biggest pillows or comforters that you can and go
Mm.
set them in each corner of the room. Most of
Interesting.
the reverb or the echo happens in the corners.
Yeah.
So if you go ahead and prop up a couple of big fabric pieces in each corner, it's got to help soften some of that echo.
Um, so in the corners of the room, what about like if I'm at a desk, would it help to put pillows on the desk?
Yeah, I think so. Some people have like buy those surrounded like panels that like you
Mhm.
can essentially like kind of like cap out a smaller room with inside of your room whenever
Right.
you're
Yeah.
speaking. So yeah, I think that helps. Whenever I first got going too, I would put some like pillows directly behind where I'm recording, and it
Mhm.
helps that initial bounce off out there as well. So I think yeah, those could definitely help. And you can also do like cuter things like getting
Mhm.
acoustic panels, and then it
Mm.
can like quasi work as like wall decor slash treat your room. So, but yeah, go pull
Yeah.
in anything that you can, blankets, pillows, random things, and kind of hide them throughout your room while you're recording.
Yeah. Okay. This is good to know. What about fabric on your desk? Is that a
Uh,
thing?
maybe. I don't think it would hurt. I have just found personally like my desk space is very sacred, and
Mhm.
there's not a lot of other things that I really want to put on my desk, so I haven't really experimented with it too
Yeah.
much.
I'm right there with you. I say that as actually my desk is pretty messy right now, but normally it's cleared off.
I mean, I have, 2, external monitors here, and then my laptop, I have my mic, my boom arm, my
Mhm.
interface here, and then, like, my basket of things that I need on a routine basis. I really don't have that much more desk space that I can afford,
Right.
to give away.
Yeah, and so something, um, I've learned somewhat recently is they make so many, desk-mounted things, which
Yes.
really helps clear off the desk. So, I mean, it used to be everything had to be on tripods. Well, now you can actually just mount it to your desk. So, it's yeah, it's amazing what's out there.
It
So,
it
if
it
you
it truly
also
is.
have sacred desk space, there are workarounds.
And I'm also very like I can't my brain doesn't function unless things are tidy.
Yeah,
So,
same.
like, that's just how I am in general, and, like, everything has to have its place.
Mhm. I'm the same way. So it's pretty hard to listen to yourself. How can someone check if they sound good?
um, One thing, especially if you're recording with somebody else, you can ask them, like, hey,
Mhm.
turn your volume to
Mm,
where you normally listen to videos or you're on calls. Do I
mhm,
sound soft? Do I sound loud?
mm,
So you can ask them those questions. You
mhm.
can also do a tap test. So I'll go ahead and do it right now, but
Okay.
like I'm going to tap into my microphone. I don't know if you can hear a little bit of that, but you can also ask your guest, can you hear that?
Mm,
And if you have an audio interface or you're on a recording platform, most of them have a waveform. So I can
mm,
see here, like I can do a tap test and I can see that I'm registering some
yeah.
volume on my microphone right now, both on this recording platform and on my audio interface. So those are great places to check. You are going to blender one of these times. You're going to think your microphone is connected and it's not going to be connected. And all of a sudden, you're going to be finished with an interview and you're going to realize that it was your computer microphone that was picking up all
Mm,
your audio.
mhm.
Those are
Been
going to
there.
happen. Like I'm 145 plus episodes deep into my podcast right now, and I've probably done that 3 or 4 times
Mhm.
in my podcast career. So just know it's coming. But yeah, I think with the right pre-interview checklist or pre-recording checklist, and making sure that doing a mic test is part of that, you can prevent that more times than not.
All right. What about your guests? So, like we're remote. Well, I'm remote every time we're streaming,
Mhm.
FYI, audience. But how can I control my guests' audio? Because
Yeah.
especially if it's podcast. Luckily, I have video with mine, so at least you can see our faces if we don't sound good. But if it's just audio, it's my guest is really going to impact what how I come across.
Yeah, this is a really tough one because I mean we produce a dozen plus shows, and the shows that are monologue are much easier than the ones that routinely have guests because the guest is always going to be
Mm-hmm.
a unknown factor. Like I
Yeah.
can coach and help my host getting them the right material, teaching them how to correctly speak into their microphone, making sure they go through their checklist so that everything is properly working before they record, but it's not scalable
Yeah.
from every single guest. But I do think there are a couple of things you can do ahead of time. First, I love in my email sequence as soon as I book a guest to give them a mic recommendation if they don't already
Mm.
have one.
Mhm.
So I would just add that into your guest sequence. Hey, you can put it into your calendar invite or the first email that you send out. Share that Samsung Q2U. And I found many times podcast guests are going to go ahead and buy a microphone because
Mhm.
they realize they're going to start investing into podcast guesting and they need a quality microphone. Next up, I think comes in the green room time. So before you press record, that guest hops on, and at first you're just listening. Like you're gonna
Mhm.
do a little bit of small talk, just like we did. How have things
Mhm.
been going? What's new in your life? And you're turning your microphone to the or your output to the right level, and you're just saying, are they soft? Are they
Mm.
loud right now? Does it sound like they're speaking into a microphone? And
Right.
then you would just go ahead and if you feel like something is off, do the same kind of prompts. Like, hey, can you go ahead and tap the top of your microphone? If you're not hearing that, then ask them to tap on their computer, and you'll probably find
Mm.
out. Okay,
They're on
their
their computer.
microphone's not plugged in. A lot of the recording platforms also show you
Mm.
what microphone is connected for your guest, so you can kind of double verify if that's the
Mhm.
case. And then depending on the microphone themselves, they might be coming in loud or soft. There might be a gain volume,
Mm.
a place where they can change their gain up or
Mm.
down. I always go softer because you can always fix things in post production and raise the volume. It's way harder to lower the volume
Okay.
in post production work.
Yeah, because it kinda,
Um,
like, blows out.
Yep.
Yeah.
It caps off at a certain point. So whenever you export your audio, really, really high sounds will essentially get slashed,
Mm.
and then that file gets compressed, and you no longer have that
Mhm.
volume, that audio
Mhm.
on the file. But if it's soft, all you have to do is just increase the volume to the
Yeah.
level that is normal listening. So do the
Fun
tap.
fact, photos are the same way.
Yes. So yeah, do the tap test, and feel free to coach your guest. Hey, can you
Mm.
pull the mic a little closer to you? Can you back it off a little bit? Can you turn your gain down? Can you verify that your microphone is plugged in?
Yeah.
It's your job in the green room to go through that tech check with
Mm.
your guest.
All right, so mic Check. Background noise, check. What about listening? Do we need headphones as we're recording?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
So 2 reasons.
Mhm.
The first reason, if you're not using headphones, then the audio has to be coming out of your computer or
Mm.
in some kind of speaker format.
Mhm.
And whenever that happens, you're potentially going to get what is called clapback.
Okay.
So you're going to be talking as a guest, that's got to come out of my speaker, and then my microphone is going to pick up your voice in
Mm.
the speaker. So
Mhm.
now whenever I re-listen to that podcast episode, I hear you talking and I hear your echo that's being
Mm.
picked up from essentially you speaking into my speaker.
Right.
So you'll hear this thing called clapback, and it's super annoying because it's like a half second delayed, because it's being picked up on both audio
Mm.
tracks. So
Mhm.
I hate that, and that can be a pain to get rid of outside of just like
Sure.
the manual cutting out your track on every single aspect of the editing aspect. So you'll want to put headphones in just for that reason, but
Mhm.
also you should be, most people listen to podcast on headphones, and you'll be able to more
Mm.
closely identify if you're having an audio issue if you have headphones in, and it should match
Right.
then pretty well. Like, okay, how am I hearing them from a noise standpoint? Am I hearing a lot of background noise? Can I
Yeah.
ask them to turn off their fan, or stop the laundry from going, or to shut a door, things like that.
Mm.
A little bit
Mhm.
harder to pick up if you don't have headphones on.
That makes sense. What about an advisor who wants to do it themselves? What software should they be using to record? Because you mentioned recording software earlier. What software should they use to record, and what should they use to edit their files? Speaking of, is Audacity still a thing? Because that was a
Yeah.
thing when I was in college.
Yeah. I'm almost positive Audacity is still a thing. Actually, I know for sure Audacity is still a thing.
Okay.
And then MacBook users also get GarageBand for free. And I would
Mm.
say if you're DIY,
Mhm.
audio only, start with GarageBand. The first 45-ish episodes of my podcast were
Mhm.
all edited in GarageBand. Some of them
Okay.
even recorded in GarageBand. So if you're a monologue
Mhm.
and there's not another speaker that's going to be on your podcast, you can go into GarageBand, you can open up a new project, you can press record, and you can speak directly into the track on GarageBand. And then you
Mm.
can edit in GarageBand as well, which is
Mhm.
great. So
Mhm.
all in one. If you're going to be doing remote recordings, you might want to look at some other software that's out there. If you're a streamer and you want to stream, something like Restream here could
Mhm.
be really helpful. If you're not going to stream, some of my favorites are Squadcast, Zencaster, and Riverside. I would
Okay.
start with one of those three. I think most of them also have free plans.
Mhm.
So if you're only going to do 1 or 2 episodes a
Right.
month, you might be able to get away with a free plan, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
If you want another recommendation for editing software, though, one of my favorites, especially for beginner DIY podcasters, is a software called Descript or
Mhm.
Descript. You'll
Mm.
hear it said both ways. What I
Mhm.
really like about their program is they have text functionality, so you can essentially read the script and edit the script versus listening and seeing a waveform and editing a waveform. It's way
Mm.
easier to see
Mhm.
the words. It's way easier to see the words. Like, you can literally see
Yes.
that, and then you can cut that out. I can go ahead and just chop out what I just repeated right there, and it's
Yes.
way easier from that standpoint.
Oh, that's great because yeah, same thing happens with video. If I'm editing something in Premiere, I'm like, okay, where does the word start? And I'm trying to figure out the wavelength. I'm like, I don't.
Yes.
This is hard.
Yeah, you get good at it after you've edited 40 plus episodes in a waveform. You're like, oh yeah, that was definitely a peak, and I learn
Uh-huh.
people's inflections a little bit more. But it is tedious and annoying, and way easier to edit in a script or a
Yeah.
translated version of your podcast, even if it's not 100% right.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. Um, for those who want to get fancy, should they record their own intro and outro or have someone else introduce them?
Ooh, I really like this question.
Yeah.
I might hurt some of my clients' feelings by this, but I'm almost 95% in favor of always recording your own intro and outro, especially intro.
Mm. Okay.
Why would you want the first voice that someone hears on
Yeah.
your podcast to be someone else's voice?
Mm.
That's
Mhm.
why, like, I love my voiceover people that are out there. There's a space for it for sure. I even refer some business to voiceover
Yeah.
talent out there. But more times than not, I'm asking my clients and pushing my clients to go and record their own intro. I've pretty
Mm,
much like fallen on
mhm,
this agreement that I think most intros shouldn't be that long. Like I love
mhm.
a 15 to 30-second intro. Like and welcome them to the podcast, tell them what the podcast is about and tell them who you are. And if you can do that in 3 to 4 sentences in an intro bumper, meaning
Right.
the intro that plays on the same intro that plays on every single episode, I
Yeah.
think that's plenty for most intros. And like I said, I mostly enjoy that coming out of the host's mouth, especially if you're an advisor
Mm.
and you're using your podcast to build authority or
Mhm.
keep in relationships with existing clients, to work on your own branding or thought leadership. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't be contracting out the most important piece of podcasting, which is your voice, to
Mm.
somebody else, and
Mhm.
especially something like an intro bumper that appears on every single one of your episodes.
Mm. Hmm.
But that's my hot take for today.
Yeah. Yeah. What about background music? So we use Envato here.
Mhm.
What would you recommend for advisors who want to add background music, or should they stay away from that? Because I mean, that adds in a whole new level of complexity.
I like a little bit of music layered on
Mhm.
top of or behind your intro and outro, especially like if you gotta like read a disclaimer or something that's like
Mhm.
super
Mhm.
boring, which hopefully you can shove that at the very, very end.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of adding a little bit of music as long as you kind of know what you're doing and that your music doesn't drown out your voice. I would say go ahead and build a little bit into it. I think it gives a little depth to your podcast. I
Yeah.
use a website. I typically start with a website called Pixabay. It's
Mhm.
Pixabay.com. And you can just search by music by like category. So maybe you want something soft or upbeat or motivating or energetic or lo-fi. You can search these and they're all royalty free samples of music. I typically ask my clients, here, go find like 3 to 5 samples that you really like, that you feel
Mhm.
like encapsulates the sound you're trying to get with your podcast, and then we go ahead and use that sample and find and match it up well with their intro and build out their
Mm.
intro bumper for them.
Okay. I've used Pixabay in the past. I didn't know that they had music, so
Yep.
that's good to know.
I think it's mostly images
Yeah.
that they're more well known for, but yeah, they have music and it's all royalty free, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So all in, what is everything going to cost? Uh, was the mic, recording software, editing software, and anything else that you mentioned?
That's that along with your podcast host are going to be your big
Mm,
four, kind
mhm,
of your minimum requirement. I do think buying a microphone should be a minimum requirement. I'd buy the Samsung Q2U. That's
mhm.
$70. A recording platform, I said you can get away with some free ones,
Yeah.
but if you need more, most of it's on recording time. So it's like if you need
Mhm,
more than like 2 or 4 hours of recording time a month, you'll probably have to buy into a plan.
mhm,
Riverside is like somewhere between 15 and $20.
mhm.
So you can go ahead and add that in. Your editing software, I'd start with GarageBand, which is free. I know PC users also have something that comes pre-installed, but you can go ahead and buy Descript, which I think ends up being like 15 or $20 a month as well. And
Okay.
actually, with Descript, they recently bought Squadcast, which is a Riverside equivalent. So you can get them
Mm,
both for free.
mm,
So you can get your recording and your editing software for free if you go ahead and bundle Descript and
right.
Squadcast, which so that's $20. And then I had one more thing that I wanted to suggest. Oh, your podcast host.
Yeah.
So this is where your podcast is going to live and get distributed to the podcast
Mhm,
players. That's roughly about $15 to $20 a month too. If you're going to buy a month to month or an annual, if you buy annual, you can get a little cheaper. So I think
mm,
you're going to have about $70 up front for the
mhm.
microphone and call it somewhere between $40 and $60 recurring every month for software cost.
Okay, so what would that be a year?
Comes out to about 550 a year, I think.
Okay, not too bad.
Totally doable. And I think
Yeah.
there's actually ways to get your software cost down if you're really trying to get lower than that.
Right, right. Um, okay, so well, I guess you kind of already answered this. I was gonna say, what about the bare minimum? Like, what's the least amount of equipment that someone can get by with? But you pretty much just answered that. A
I
mic.
think I think that's it. And if we want to address the reverse too, So you
Yeah.
might want to buy an audio
Mm.
interface, which is the PodTrack. I use the Zoom PodTrack P4. I think
Mhm.
it cost me about $150, and you might also have to buy some cables if your
Mhm.
microphones don't come with
Mhm.
cables.
Mhm.
You might consider buying a webcam. I'm talking into the Logitech Brio 500 right now.
Okay.
Cost me about $100. And then floodlights. I have
Mm.
this light right here. I have another attach-on clip-on light right here.
Mhm.
Those are both probably somewhere between $50 to $150, depending on what you want to buy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to do a whole session on lighting,
That is
in the
not
future.
my forte. I know just enough from all my video friends to
Yeah.
help me get by.
My husband does lighting for the film industry, so music videos, commercials, and movies. So some point in the future, I will get him on here to talk about lighting. He did my lighting.
Nice.
It's
It looks great too.
yeah, thank you.
I still just need to work on some backlight
Mm.
in this space right here, and
Mhm.
then I'm always kind of redesigning depending on what plant I'm trying to show off at this time. But yeah, I feel pretty well done with at least my remote recording setup right now.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring up here in case anyone wants to reach out to you. We have Justin's email. And if you're a listener only, it's Justin at simplepodstudios.com. Would you say that's the best way to reach you,
Yep,
Justin?
email or find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn. Let me see if I have that. Is it the same as your Instagram handle?
I think so. I think it the backslash is like Justin Lee Peters.
Okay.
But if you're connected with Callie too, we're friends on LinkedIn, so you should
Mhm.
see that mutual connection out there.
Perfect. Any last words for our audience on takeaways for audio equipment? Other than don't have someone else do your intro.
Once again, that was a hot take, and if you really want to have someone else speak to your intro, I think it can be fine and it's
Mhm.
okay. Outside of that, I think my only piece of advice is don't get overwhelmed. This should be priority maybe number 10 on decisions that you should be thinking through whenever you're launching or starting your podcast. You can always upgrade your equipment as you get going. You probably will want to because that's
Mhm.
what podcasters like to do.
Mhm.
Don't get overwhelmed. I would say start simple and just get going.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, video is the same. After you start doing it, you discover what things you want to invest in more. Just like I mentioned before, all the, desk mounted things, that's actually gonna be one of my next investments is moving some of the stuff I have into smaller spaces.
Yeah, getting it lifted and
Yes.
away.
Yes, exactly. I need that space.
Definitely.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Justin. This was so informative and helpful. And again, if you're listening or watching, you can reach out to Justin if you have any more equipment questions at justin at simplepodstudios.com or on LinkedIn. Just search my connections.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And for our guests, thank you for joining us. Um, if you're curious how well your marketing is doing, guess what? I have a quiz that you can take. Here it is. Is your marketing savvy or sorry? Find out. It only takes about 2 minutes. It's pretty short. And then you'll have a good idea of where you stand. And then join us next Monday as we talk to Katie Braden of C&J Innovations. We'll be exploring how to go deeper with your prospects using behavioral finance. So they've got this awesome survey that they use that the founder created when she was an advisor, and we'll be digging into that and how they use it to connect on a deeper level with their audience. So join us then. Until then, have a great